Haley thought the worst part of divorce would be the paperwork, until her husband called a wellness check, and she ended up behind a locked psychiatric door labeled violent on a form she'd never seen. If you've ever been judged by someone else's story, feel free to share what happened in the comments. Haley Steinfeld left the ICU after a late shift and drove straight to the daycare that stayed open for hospital staff. Noah climbed into his car seat wearing a paper crown, talking fast enough to blur words. Haley listened, nodded, and kept her hands steady on the wheel. At home, she set her lunch container on the counter and started water for pasta. Grant's text had arrived while she was still in the parking garage. We need to talk about Noah. When she opened the front door, Grant Hollis was on the porch, holding Noah's overnight bag like he'd brought a peace offering. "You look exhausted," he said. "I worked. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." His eyes went to Noah, then back to Haley. "I'm worried about him," Grant said. "About what he's around." "What he's around is dinner," Haley said. Grant's voice softened. "You're scaring me, Haley." The doorbell rang. Grant didn't flinch. Haley opened the door to 2 officers and a paramedic with a clipboard. "Ma'am," one officer said, "we got a call about a domestic disturbance and possible self-harm." "From who?" Haley asked. "We can't disclose that," he said. "Can we step in?" Grant moved to the side, not blocking the doorway, just there. "I'm her husband," he said. "She's been losing it. She's not herself." Haley kept her tone even. "My kid is right here. I'm not doing this in front of him." The officer's gaze lingered on her face, like calm was another symptom. The paramedic asked, "Do you need any personal items before we go?" Haley looked at the lunch container she'd brought home. A plastic butter knife sat in the corner. "I have a butter knife," she said. No one smiled. The officer made a note anyway. He handed her a form. Haley glanced down and saw the call time. It was stamped 20 minutes earlier than when she'd pulled into the driveway. "That's wrong," she said, tapping the paper. "It's what we were given," the officer replied. Behind him, Grant spoke, rehearsed. "She got out of control. She threw things. She talked about disappearing. I'm scared for Noah." "That didn't happen," Haley said. Grant's expression stayed gentle. "See," he told the officer. "She doesn't even hear it." Haley pointed toward the hallway. "Let me call my sister," she said, "or a lawyer." "It'll be easier after you cooperate," the officer said, already shifting closer. Haley checked the doorbell camera feed on her phone. The screen spun, then flashed. Offline. Grant's eyes flicked toward the corner where the modem sat. "Just go get checked out," Grant said in that soothing voice. "For Noah." "We've got court next week." He caught himself. "Your schedule next week is crazy." The paramedic took Haley by the elbow. Haley grabbed her keys on the way out as Noah started to ask why, and Grant lifted him up, turned, and carried him back through the doorway while Haley was guided toward the waiting ambulance. A security door clicked open, then shut behind her with a sound that felt final in a way paperwork never did. A tech at a counter held out a gray bin. "Phone." Haley handed it over. "Keys." She dropped them in. "Hair tie." Haley slid it off her wrist. "Watch." "That's my shift clock," she said, even as she set it down. The tech glanced at her badge clipped to her scrubs. "Hospital ID, too." "I still have a shift tomorrow," Haley said. "I need that to get past the garage gate." The tech didn't look up. "Right now you're a patient, not staff." Haley stared at her badge in the bin like it belonged to somebody else. Above the counter, a laminated poster read, "Patient Rights," in big letters. Directly under it sat the bin of confiscated items, as if the building enjoyed irony. A nurse with a tired ponytail pointed toward a chair. "Sit. Name and date of birth." Haley gave both. The nurse typed, then asked without looking up. "Any diagnoses? Bipolar, depression, anxiety, anything like that?" "No." The nurse nodded and entered something anyway. Haley watched the screen angle just enough to catch a phrase. "Denies history." Haley didn't argue. She'd charted enough to know what denies did in a note. It didn't mean she'd never had anything. It meant she'd been asked, and it was now part of the record. Another staff member approached with a thin booklet. "This will help while you're here," the woman said. "Anger management." Haley took it because refusing things had already become a sport she was losing. She opened to the first page and saw a cheerful list titled, "Breathing, 4, 7, 8. She looked up. "Is there a version for people who are being locked behind doors?" The woman blinked once. "We encourage you to be open to tools." Haley closed the booklet and set it in her lap like a menu she hadn't ordered from. At intake, they asked the same questions in different voices. Was she hearing things? Was she planning to hurt herself? Had she hurt anyone? Haley kept her answers short, the way she did when she gave report to a doctor who wanted facts, not a story. Each time she spoke, someone wrote, and the writing seemed to matter more than her mouth. They finally returned her phone long enough for her to power it down. The nurse said it like a kindness. "Just turn it off and hand it back." Policy. The screen lit up with a burst of notifications before Haley could hit the button. A group chat from the ICU flooded the top. "Did you hear Haley had a breakdown? Grant called HR already. Is she okay?" Haley's thumb hovered over the thread. She didn't open it. She shut the phone off and placed it in the bin again. The nurse slid it away like a card dealer. A man in a collared shirt appeared at the counter and spoke to staff in a low voice. Haley heard her own name, then Grant's. The nurse came back with a clipboard. "Your husband called," she said. "He asked that you not contact your child while you're agitated." "I'm not agitated," Haley said. The nurse didn't react to the sentence itself, only to the fact it existed. "That's the request." Haley kept her gaze on the laminated patient rights poster, then on the bin below it, then on the nurse's pen moving again. Someone had printed rights. Someone else had set a container beneath them. A different staff member went through Haley's wallet, checking it the way airport security checked luggage, efficiently, without apology. She paused at a small card taped behind Haley's license, an emergency contact list. "This number?" the woman asked. "That's in case my phone dies," Haley said. The woman stepped away to the desk phone. Haley listened to her read the number aloud. A moment later, the woman returned, eyes flicking down to a note she'd scribbled. "Someone texted you on that line," she said, and read fast, like it wasn't meant for Haley at all. "Don't sign anything. Remember every name. I'll try to get you family counsel if we need it. Marisol Vega." Haley held her face still, the way she did when a monitor alarmed but she was counting breaths for a patient. The staff member tucked the card back, already bored. "Okay," Haley said. The nurse flipped to another page on the clipboard. "You're being held for evaluation, emergency detention, 72 hours. "And after that?" Haley asked. "It can be extended," the nurse said. "Depends." Haley wanted a number. She got a shrug disguised as procedure. A door opened and a man in scrubs gestured for her to stand. Haley rose, then paused. "Can I call a lawyer?" she asked. He answered without stopping. "It'll be easier once you cooperate." They led her to a small room with a table that was too clean to feel helpful. A staff member set a thick packet in front of her, then placed a pen on top, straightening it as if alignment could make consent real. "Sign and everything goes faster," the staff member said. Haley signed nothing. She set the pen down, pushed the packet back, and asked for a copy. The staffer's smile tightened. A few minutes later, a tech walked her down a corridor and stopped at a door with a small window. He tapped a badge and waved her through. "Therapy," he said. "Is this where I get my phone back?" she asked. "Not my call," he said. Dr. Calvin Rhodes stood when she entered, offering a hand like she was an appointment he'd been expecting all week. "Haley, right?" "Yes," she said. "Please sit," he said. He opened a chart on the computer and nodded at the screen as if it had greeted him. The way he moved made everything feel routine, like this was the same conversation he'd had 100 times, and the ending had already been typed. "Grant is very worried about Noah," Dr. Rhodes said. "Grant?" Haley repeated. The way he said her husband's name, first name familiar, hit harder than the locked door. Haley kept her hands on her knees and watched him scroll. A note sat open on the desk view. Patient had an outburst in the kitchen, threw cookware, threatened to disappear. Haley stared at the word cookware. She hadn't even turned on the stove. She hadn't taken a pan out. She'd barely set Noah's bag down before the doorbell. "Where did that come from?" Haley asked. "Collateral history," he said. "From who?" she asked. "Family," he said, already typing. He looked up with a practiced tilt of concern. "Do you recognize that you lost control?" Dr. Rhodes asked. "I didn't," Haley said. On the wall behind him, a framed statement promised confidentiality, dignity, and safety. As he reached for a brochure, the overhead speaker crackled. "Code Gray, Hallway B," a voice said. Dr. Rhodes didn't pause. "This is a safe place," he said. A thud sounded somewhere outside, then muffled shouting. Haley's eyes flicked to the door. Dr. Rhodes kept his smile and lowered his voice. "What we're doing here is getting you stable," he said. "By writing fiction?" Haley asked. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He chose not to answer the question. "If you can show insight," he said, "we can move things along." "What does that mean?" Haley asked. "It means recognizing the problem," he said, "accepting a diagnosis, starting treatment." "And if I don't?" she asked. He spread his hands like a judge explaining a sentence. "Then we take the full 72 hours, he said. "Or longer," Haley said. "That depends on your cooperation," he replied. Haley asked for Noah again, keeping her voice level. "I need to call my son." "We can discuss that after we complete a few steps," Dr. Rhodes said. He clicked to another tab, then another, as if the computer held all the truth and she was an unreliable witness. When he turned the monitor slightly, a calendar sidebar popped up. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. read, Hollis, follow-up. Not Steinfeld, not evaluation, just Hollis, like Grant was the client. Haley didn't point at it. She watched Dr. Rhodes watch her, waiting for a reaction he could label. A nurse knocked and peeked in. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine," Dr. Rhodes said. The nurse's eyes darted to Haley's wrists, as if expecting restraints. After the nurse left, Dr. Rhodes slid a packet across the desk, thinner than the intake stack but heavier in implication. It listed goals with checkboxes. Acknowledge symptoms, agree to medication consult, allow family involvement. Haley read the headings without touching the paper. "You work ICU," he said. "Yes." "That's stressful." "It's my job." "You've been sleeping?" "I sleep when Noah sleeps," she said. He nodded as if she'd confirmed a diagnosis on her own. He asked about postpartum depression, then about medication, then about whether she'd ever snapped. Each question landed in the same place, a box waiting to be filled. "No," Haley said. "You're very certain," he replied. "I was there," she said. Dr. Rhodes opened a drawer and produced a foam ball shaped like a cartoon brain. He set it on the desk between them. "Some patients find this grounding," he said. Haley picked it up, turned it once, and put it back. "So if I squeeze the brain, I get mine back?" she asked. His smile held, but his eyes cooled. He clicked into her note again and highlighted a line with his cursor, the one about the kitchen. He didn't correct it. He didn't ask if it mattered. "Doctor." Rhodes leaned back, then rotated the monitor toward Haley. A blank field sat next to the word diagnosis. The cursor blinked in that empty box, patient as a metronome. Haley left Dr. Rhodes' office with the diagnosis box still blank on the screen behind her. A tech walked her back to the unit, reading her wristband like it mattered more than her name. The anger management booklet rode in her hands, unopened, like a coupon she couldn't redeem today anyway. After lunch trays were collected, a staff member called her to the visiting room. "Family hour," he said, as if it were a perk. Haley followed, keeping her shoulders loose. The door opened onto a table and 2 chairs, Nothing else to negotiate with that she saw. Grant Hollis entered with the careful smile he used at preschool drop-off, the one that said he'd read the handbook. He wore clean jeans and carried a small plastic caddy of toiletries. He set it down gently, like he was visiting a coworker after surgery, and hoped she'd thank him. On top of the caddy sat a single sheet with bold letters, Release of Information. Grant slid it toward her and placed a pen beside it, mimicking the intake desk. Just sign, he said. It lets them update me, makes this smoother, so I can tell Noah you're getting help. Haley didn't touch the paper. No, she said. Grant nodded, almost relieved. His smile widened a fraction, like she'd confirmed a prediction. Okay, he said, soft and patient. I'll note that. They said you might react like this. He kept his hands folded, as if he were the reasonable one. A minute later, before Haley could ask about Noah, a nurse stepped in. Your phone privileges are suspended, she said. Non-compliance. Grant didn't look at the nurse. He watched Haley, waiting for her voice to rise so it could be documented. Haley nodded once, which also got written down too. A social worker appeared next, holding an envelope. I'm required to give you this, she said, and placed it near Haley's elbow. The header read, Temporary Orders. Grant had filed for emergency custody, citing safety concerns and recent instability. The words sat like a diagnosis that didn't need a doctor. The social worker's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then looked back at Haley with the detached sympathy of someone on a deadline. Your employer contacted us, she said. They're placing you on administrative leave pending clearance. She read the email out loud, word for word. Grant's eyes on her. The social worker tucked the phone away. You should focus on healing, she added, tone rehearsed. Haley looked at the custody notice and the leave email. Yeah, she said. I'm healing with legal fees. Grant's mouth twitched, pleased and offended at once. He preferred her panic, not her math today. Grant leaned forward. You can end this fast, he said. They just need you to admit you've been struggling. Haley didn't argue. She kept her hands still. I've been tired, she said. That's not violence. Grant sighed like a saint. He glanced at the door, checking was listening for leverage. Dr. Rhodes walked in as if he'd timed it. Haley, he said, friendly again, this stress isn't helping your regulation. Grant sat back, hands open. Dr. Rhodes nodded toward the release form. Signing can lower conflict. Sometimes reducing stress is part of treatment. He said it a prescription, not advice. Haley looked from doctor to husband. Can I call my son? She asked. Dr. Rhodes didn't refuse. He adjusted his glasses. After we complete a few steps, he said. Grant nodded along as if that was reasonable, as if Noah were a reward for compliance. Haley kept her gaze steady. A staff member re-entered and spoke to Grant, not Haley. Visiting time is almost over. Grant tapped the unsigned form with one finger. She won't cooperate, he said. The staff member wrote something down without asking what cooperation meant, then looked at Haley's face as though stillness proved the point. Grant gathered his folder and the release sheet, stacking them neatly. He didn't fold the paper. He kept it flat, readable, ready. I'm trying to help, he said. I'm the only one doing it. Haley didn't respond, because responding had become a product other people sold. Grant watched her blink. 2 employees stepped to either side of Haley, close enough to guide without touching. We're done for today, one said. Haley stood, eyes on the papers in Grant's hand. Grant stayed seated for a beat, letting her walk first, then rose with his folder as if he owned the schedule. The staff guided Haley toward the hallway, one hand hovering near her elbow. Grant followed, still holding the release sheet unfolded, the bold title facing outward. At the doorway, he leaned close enough to whisper, "This could be easier." And the staff kept moving her forward as the latch clicked. Group therapy met in a windowless room where chairs formed a loose circle. Haley sat with her knees aligned, hands folded, listening. The facilitator asked everyone to check in. A man joked about the food. Nobody laughed, but several nodded anyway. She watched the clock, keeping her face neutral. Across from her, a woman in scrubs from another hospital said her brother had donated to this place. "He paid for a private room," she said. "Funny how my meds arrived faster after that." Haley didn't respond, but her fingers pressed once into her palm like she was testing sensation. After group, staff lined them up for vitals. Haley gave her arm without comment. A tech read numbers aloud, then glanced at her chart. "Still refusing releases?" he asked. "Yes." He shrugged. "Suit yourself. It's your hold, not mine." He moved on, already calling the next name, leaving her standing. At the counter near the unit door, a bag of clothes appeared with a sticky note. "Haley." The clerk said, "Drop off from a friend." Tasha Brooks stood behind the glass, pretending to study a poster. She raised 2 fingers, then tapped her pocket. Haley stepped closer. The clerk looked away. Tasha spoke through the small opening. "I can't stay," she said. "They're watching who visits." She slid a folded receipt under the slot with the bag. "Read that," she said, then softer. "Grant called HR last week. He wrote the story early." Her eyes apologized, and she backed away fast. Haley unfolded the receipt in the hallway and scanned the scribble on the back. Dates, times, and the words HR and concern. She pictured Grant rehearsing lines while she changed dressings at work. The thought didn't make her cry. It made her check pockets for anything they could take later. She asked the desk for a legal call. The clerk said, "Add the number to your approved list." "I don't have my phone." "That's why we have forms." Haley wrote Marisol Vega's number from memory, then waited through 3 transfers and a long stretch of hold music that never ended. When Marisol finally came on, her voice sounded like she'd been running between hearings. "Haley?" "Yes." "Don't sign anything." "I haven't." "In Texas, one-party consent. If you're in the conversation, you can record it." Haley kept her eyes on the wall clock as if time could be argued into behaving. Marisol didn't waste words. "Let them talk," she said. "Don't argue, don't plead. They'll write emotional and call it evidence." Haley asked for Noah. "Later," Marisol said. "First, protect your proof. Keep originals. Make copies when you can." "If they offer a shortcut, it's a trap. You're not crazy today." After the call, Haley sat at the edge of her bed and weighed 2 paths. Admitting a diagnosis could open the door sooner and lock her into Grant's version forever. Staying silent could keep her stuck longer, but it might preserve a way out. She chose the option that hurt. In afternoon group, a red sign on the door read, "No recording devices." Haley sat beneath a television showing the hallway camera feed in real time. The facilitator asked about trust. A man muttered, "Trust is expensive." Haley said, "Apparently, it's also on subscription." No one laughed. The note-taker paused. Back in her room, Haley emptied Tasha's bag. Sweatpants, a paperback, and a cheap digital recorder the size of a thumb drive taped under the deodorant. Tasha hadn't written it down, but the message was clear. Haley slid it into the lining of her bra, then adjusted her shirt, steady. At dinner, staff announced a random contraband check. Haley stood while they rifled through drawers and padded pockets. They didn't find anything, but one aide lingered near her chest as if considering physics. "Arms out," the aide said. Haley complied and kept her gaze flat like she was giving report. A staffer posted her schedule on a clipboard. Therapy at 9, review at noon. Haley asked for a pen and was given a dull golf pencil. She wrote Dr. Rhodes's name and the time. The recorder pressed against her skin, warm and inconvenient, like a secret IV line all day. In the corridor, a tech escorted her toward Dr. Rhodes's office. "Feeling better?" he asked. "I'm behaving," Haley said. He snorted, then corrected himself. "Good," he said. At the door, he checked her wristband and opened it. Haley's hand slid to the recorder button under her shirt, ready to press. She stepped into the therapy room without scanning for exits. Dr. Rhodes looked up from his computer and smiled, already mid-story. "Have you thought about accepting help?" he asked. Haley sat down, kept her shoulders loose, and clicked the recorder on as the door latched behind her with a snap. Dr. Calvin Rhodes leaned forward like he'd been waiting for her to finally get it. "Have you thought about accepting help?" he asked. Haley kept her hands on her thighs, the recorder warm against her skin. She didn't look at the monitor. She didn't argue about the kitchen. She didn't say Grant's name. "I'm willing to participate," she said. Dr. Rhodes's eyebrows lifted, pleased. "That's a good start," he said. "Do you recognize there's been stress affecting your judgment?" "I've been under stress," Haley said. "I'm working on coping skills." He nodded as if she'd just recited the correct password. He asked about sleep. She answered with numbers, not feelings. He asked about anger. She said she'd been frustrated, which was true and useless in court. He asked if she felt safe. She said she wanted to return to routine. "Routine with Noah," Dr. Rhodes said. "Yes," Haley said. "That's the goal." He typed, then paused. "If you continue this progress," he said, "you may be considered for early discharge." Haley didn't thank him. She just nodded once, like she was accepting discharge instructions for a patient who didn't want to hear them. Dr. Rhodes ended the session with the same smile he'd started with, then walked her out as if he'd done her a favor. Over the next day, Haley treated the unit like a job she couldn't quit. She followed directions. She showed up on time. She spoke when asked and stopped when the question ended. When someone tried to bait her with a comment about accountability, she replied with, "I hear you," and let the sentence sit there. A nurse stopped her after morning group. "Keep this up," the nurse said. "You might get your phone call back." "Okay," Haley said. Later, the nurse returned with a small slip of paper. "You get one call," she said. 5 minutes. Staff present. Haley was led to a desk phone that looked older than her hospital badge. The nurse dialed and turned the speaker on, then stayed close enough to smell shampoo. Noah's voice came through, thin and fast. "Mom, where are you?" "I'm at a place that's helping me get back to normal," Haley said. "Are you coming home?" "Not today," Haley said, "but I'm working on it." "Dad said you're sick." "I'm tired," Haley said, "and I miss you." "Can I come see you?" "Not yet," Haley said. The nurse tapped the timer on her phone like a referee. "I love you, buddy," Haley said. "Love you," Noah said, then added, "Do you still have my dinosaur pajamas?" "They're washed," Haley said, "in your drawer." The nurse pressed the button and ended the call before Haley could add anything that sounded like pleading. After lunch, a tech approached with a tray and set down a plastic spoon that was thicker than the one from yesterday. He said it with a straight face. "Improved utensil privileges." Haley took it, examined it once, then nodded slowly. "Wow," she said. "Should I update my resume?" The tech didn't laugh. He walked off as if she'd confirmed something again. That evening, Haley returned to her room and noticed her things weren't where she'd left them. The paperback had shifted. The toiletries bag sat at a different angle. The anger management booklet had moved from the chair to the bed. A staff member passed by and asked too casually, "Did you bring any additional electronic devices?" Haley kept her voice even. "No." The staff member lingered, eyes scanning her hands, then said, "Okay," and kept walking. At the desk, the schedule board changed. Haley's discharge review, the one staff had mentioned with that careful optimism, was still listed for tomorrow. A new note appeared right above it in marker. "Urgent session, Rhodes, 10:30 a.m. Haley asked the clerk, "Why am I being added?" The clerk didn't look up. "Doctor's request." "Is it required?" Haley asked. "It's on your plan," the clerk said. "If you want discharge, you follow your plan." Haley returned to group and listened while people talked about boundaries, triggers, and support systems. A man said his wife brought him a new pillow, and the nurses started calling him Sir after that. Someone else said her mother threatened to stop paying for her car unless she cooperated. Haley kept her face neutral and watched the TV mounted high on the wall. The security feed showed the hallway, the nurse's station, and a corner of the very room they were sitting in, as if privacy was a rumor they offered with paperwork. The next morning, a tech escorted Haley to Dr. Rhodes's office early. like a favor that felt like control. Dr. Rhodes didn't open with pleasantries. He lowered his voice and spoke with the warmth of someone sharing a secret. "Grant has been calling," he said. "He's worried." Haley sat down without rushing. The recorder pressed against her rib, already on. "Grant is very invested in your recovery," Dr. Rhodes continued. "He wants what's best for Noah." Haley nodded once. "I'm focused on getting discharged," she said. Dr. Rhodes smiled, smaller now, like he'd stepped closer to his real audience. "Exactly," he said. "We're aligned." He stood and closed the door himself, turning the latch with care. He didn't sit at his computer. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, eyes steady. "Grant has done a lot to help you," Dr. Rhodes said. "Now it's your turn to show some good faith," he added as the recorder kept running. He slid a single page across the desk. The header read, "Voluntary Admission and Treatment Compliance," with boxes already checked in pen. "This is the fastest route back to Noah," he said. Haley didn't reach for it. The recorder pressed against her ribs, steady. She looked at the paper, then at his hands. "If I don't sign," she asked, "how long do I stay?" Dr. Rhodes lifted his shoulders in a practiced half shrug. "That depends on the board," he said, "and on the reports we receive from family." The word family landed like a stamp. He tapped the page once, lightly, as if the paper were a pulse point. "You want to be seen as cooperative," he said. "That helps everyone." A knock interrupted him. A staff member entered carrying a thick packet that still smelled like warm toner. She set it on the desk, opened to a highlighted section, and angled it so Dr. Rhodes could see. Haley caught the phrase before he covered it with his palm. Violent ideation. It sat there like a diagnosis that didn't need proof, only repetition. Dr. Rhodes didn't ask where it came from. He nodded as if it had always been true. "See," he said, voice softened. "This is why we need structure." Haley kept her posture neutral. "Who wrote that?" she asked. Dr. Rhodes didn't answer the question. He stood and opened the door. "Let's not get stuck on details," he said. "Your focus should be progress." They walked back to the unit with a tech trailing close behind. At the nurse's station, a social worker waved Haley over with an envelope in hand, the way someone waved you down for a copay. "I need to update you," the social worker said. Grant Hollis's name was printed at the top of the first page. The next line held the part that mattered. Temporary custody request. "Grant filed for a temporary order," the social worker said. "Noah will remain with his father until you complete an independent evaluation." Haley didn't argue about the word remain. She heard it like an alarm that didn't stop. "I need to call him," she said. "We can arrange a supervised call," the social worker replied, already turning toward the desk phone. They put her on speaker. A nurse stood at her shoulder, arms crossed, watching Haley's mouth like it was a weapon. Another staff member hovered near the keypad, ready to end it. Noah answered on the second ring. "Mom?" he said. "It's me," Haley said. "Are you at a hotel?" Noah asked, hopeful, like hotels meant pools and waffles. "Yeah," Haley said. "This one has a lot of locked doors." The nurse's eyebrows lifted. The social worker pretended not to hear the sarcasm. "When are you coming home?" Noah asked. "Not today," Haley said. "I'm working on it." "Dad said you need to be stable," Noah said, repeating a grown-up word carefully. "I'm okay," Haley said. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," he said. "Can I bring you my Lego guy?" "Keep him safe for me," Haley said. The staff member cut the call before Haley could add anything else. The dial tone filled the gap like a punishment for talking too long. At lunch, the schedule board changed again. A note appeared in red marker. Board review moved up. 48 hours became 24 without anyone saying why. Staff stopped using the word discharge, replacing it with reassess, like hope had been taken off formulary. That afternoon, Grant arrived for visiting time without a bag of toiletries. He carried a folder thick enough to bend his wrist. He smiled at the staff, nodded at Haley like they were meeting at a parent-teacher conference, and sat across from her. "I brought some things to help clarify," he said. He opened the folder and spread papers across the table in tidy rows. Screenshots of texts, photos of an unmade bed, her work schedule highlighted in yellow, a calendar with night shifts circled like evidence of moral failure. "You don't sleep," Grant said. "You're unpredictable." Haley didn't touch the papers. She let them sit there and waited for him to keep talking. Grant pointed at a text where she'd written, "Can't talk, at work." "See," he said, "you shut down. That's what they're worried about." A staff member stood by the door, watching Haley's face for any expression that could be labeled. Grant lowered his voice, leaning in like he was offering a deal at a car lot. "Just admit you have a problem," he said. "They'll write, 'stable.' You'll get to see Noah." Haley kept her tone flat. "Stable isn't a word you get to hand out," she said. Grant's smile thinned, but he didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He gathered the pages back into the folder with care, keeping the release form on top like a reminder. "Then you're choosing this," he said. The latch clicked. A staff member opened the door and looked at Haley, not Grant. "It's time for the board," the staff member said. Haley stood. Her hand pressed the recorder through her shirt for a second, confirming it was still there. She followed the staff into the hall while Grant stayed behind with his folder open on the table, papers flat and ready, and the nurse's shoes scuffed the floor as they steered her forward toward the review room. Haley sat at a small table with her hands visible, the way staff seemed to prefer. Dr. Calvin Rhodes sat across from her, angled toward 3 people behind a folding table. A clipboard sat in front of each of them, already open. A woman with glasses introduced herself without offering a hand. "We're the treatment review board," she said. Dr. Rhodes began talking like he was reading a script he'd practiced in his car. "Haley has presented with poor insight," he said. Haley answered the first question the way she answered doctors on the ICU. "Yes." "No." "I don't agree with that wording." Dr. Rhodes nodded each time, then turned back to the board. "C," he said. "Lack of insight." One of the board members, a man with a badge that said Administrator, flipped a page. "According to the notes from your husband's attorney," he said, "there's concern you may be minimizing." Haley's head turned before she could stop it. "My husband's attorney?" she said. The administrator blinked, as if he'd said the wrong line out loud. "It's collateral information," Dr. Rhodes said quickly. "It helps us assess risk." Haley looked at the administrator. "So you're taking legal notes," she said, "and calling it clinical." Dr. Rhodes kept his voice soft, like he was calming a patient rather than answering a question. "Grant is trying to protect Noah," he said. Haley didn't correct his first name Comfort. She let it sit on the table with everything else. A board member asked if she would sign a release so they could coordinate with family. "No," Haley said. Dr. Rhodes leaned back, disappointed in a way that felt rehearsed. "Refusal to engage," he told them. "Continued resistance." The woman with glasses made a mark on her page. "Without cooperation," she said, "we can't verify stability." "You can verify my vitals," Haley said. "You do it 3 times a day." Dr. Rhodes didn't smile. "This isn't about blood pressure," he said. The administrator cleared his throat and looked at the others. They spoke in short phrases that sounded like policy. When they finished, the woman with glasses looked at Haley. "We're extending your hold for continued stabilization," she said. "How many days?" Haley asked. "We'll reassess," she replied, which wasn't an answer. They stood as a group, the meeting ending the way it started, with everyone acting like it had been a fair process because it had a table. Dr. Rhodes held the door for Haley as a tech returned to escort her back. In the hallway, a familiar voice cut through the routine. "Haley!" Marisol Vega stood near the double doors with a man in a suit carrying a slim briefcase. Marisol's hair was pulled back tight, like she didn't leave room for excuses. She stepped forward, but a staff member moved in front of her. "Are you her attorney?" the staff member asked. "Yes," Marisol said. The staff member didn't shift. "We have no authorization for disclosure," she said. "The patient hasn't signed a release." Marisol looked past the staff member to Haley. "Don't sign anything," Marisol said. "I haven't," Haley replied. The suited man raised his eyebrows at the staff member. "This is a family matter with court involvement," he said. "Still need a release," the staff member answered, pleasant and immovable. Marisol took a step closer and lowered her voice. "Do you have your phone?" she asked. "No," Haley said. Marisol nodded once, then let her hand drop to the folder the staff member carried, the one with Haley's name on the spine. Her fingers moved fast, not dramatic, just efficient. She slid a folded piece of paper into the gap at the edge of the folder, as if it belonged there. The tech tugged Haley's elbow lightly. "Time to go," he said. Haley walked away with the staff, the folded note hidden against the folder, until she reached her room and opened it with careful hands. One-party consent. Keep the original file. Don't let them touch the device. Haley folded the note smaller and tucked it behind her wristband. Later that afternoon, a staff member brought a new cover sheet for her chart. He slapped a label onto the front. "Safety plan," he said. Haley watched him write an emergency contact. Grant Hollis. She didn't comment. She just looked up at him until he cleared his throat and walked away. After dinner, a tech announced a room check. "Contraband sweep," he said, like it was a fun event. They went through drawers, flipped the paper back open, shook out her sweatpants, and examined the toiletries bag that Tasha had dropped off. Haley stood with her hands out, giving them the least interesting version of her body. One staff member lifted the deodorant, frowned, then put it down. "Any other electronics?" she asked. "No," Haley said. They left with nothing in their hands and a new note in her file. When Haley reached for the recorder later, she felt the shape was right, but the weight had changed. She slid it out and found the battery compartment open. The battery was gone. The next morning, group therapy was scheduled outdoors in the small fenced courtyard. Staff lined them up and counted heads like they were taking attendance for a field trip. The gate buzzed open. People filed out in a slow line, watched by 2 employees with radios. Haley walked with them, keeping pace, eyes forward. She kept moving when the delivery truck's backup alarm swallowed the courtyard chatter. She took the service path like she belonged there, shoulders squared, eyes on the painted arrows that pointed to staff parking. No one shouted her name. No one ran. The gate to the lot wasn't locked, it just needed a badge she didn't have. A nurse in street clothes pushed through on her way out, and Haley slipped behind her before the latch caught, breathing through her nose and not looking back. Her ICU scrubs clung to her, a uniform for running instead of rounding on patients. A man in a polo shirt unloaded boxes from the truck, glancing at her with the caution of Houston traffic. Haley lifted both hands, palms open. "I'm not trying to steal anything," she said. "Then what are you trying to do?" he asked. "Borrow your phone for one call." He hesitated, then handed it over without unlocking it. "Dial it," he said. "Speaker. I don't want drama." Haley dialed Marisol Vega's number from memory, watching the man's shoes, not his face. The line rang twice. She kept her voice steady, the way she did with families during bad hospital codes. Marisol answered breathless. "Where are you?" "Not at the unit," Haley said. "Good. Listen." Marisol's voice sharpened. "There's a temporary custody hearing in a few days. If they tag you as non-compliant one more time, it hardens. They'll say I escaped. They can say whatever. We decide what it means." Haley stared at the locked employee entrance behind her. "Do I go back and look cooperative?" she asked. "Or do I make this self-defense?" "The second," Marisol said. A horn blared nearby. The delivery man shifted his weight, as if he'd already loaned her too much time. Marisol continued quickly. "Here's the list," Marisol said. "Independent evaluation, copies of any recordings, and you tell a family law attorney you were pressured to sign." Haley's throat tightened, but she didn't ask for comfort. She asked for steps. "How do I not get arrested?" "Don't go home. Don't call Grant. Go somewhere public and send your files. Haley looked down at her wrists. No hospital band, no plastic tag, just her scrub cuffs. She thought, briefly, that at least today she wasn't labeled by a bracelet. She was dressed for running. She handed the phone back, thanked the man, and walked away before reconsideration. Haley cut through side streets until she found a 24-hour coffee shop with bright lights and bored customers. She chose a table near the counter and asked for drip coffee she didn't plan to drink. Wi-Fi password? She asked the cashier. On the receipt, the cashier said. Haley used the bathroom to check her recorder, then returned and ordered a USB drive from the small rack of impulse items. The cashier scanned it like gum. Haley paid with the only card that still worked and kept the receipt. Outside, a sedan idled at the curb, rolled off when she looked. She connected to the Wi-Fi and opened a new email addressed to herself on 2 accounts. The recorder held several files. She transferred them to her phone through a cheap adapter Tasha had included, then attached the longest one first. She named it Not a Love Letter and hit send. Next, she uploaded the same file to a cloud drive, then copied it onto the USB, labeling the folder with the date and Dr. Rhodes's name. She didn't delete anything. She simply made it harder to erase. A barista called her number, and Haley lifted the cup without tasting it. Haley asked the cashier for a moment on the store phone, and the cashier slid it across with a look that said she'd seen worse. Haley dialed Marisol again. Files are sent, Haley said. Good, Marisol replied. Now you get an independent psych evaluation today or tomorrow. You tell them you were pressured to sign releases. You request records in writing. What if they say I'm missing? Let them. You're not hiding. You're preparing. Marisol gave a name for a family law partner and told Haley to write it down. Haley copied it onto a receipt and folded it into her sock. Minutes later, her borrowed phone buzzed with a text the cashier read aloud at Haley's request, like they were passing notes in class. Go straight here. Don't go home, it said, followed by an address downtown. Haley slid the phone back across the counter. Thank you, she told the cashier. The cashier nodded once. Stay safe, she said. Haley stood, gathered the USB and receipt, and walked to the door. Family court smelled like old paper and nervous coffee. Haley walked beside Marisol Vega through a hallway packed with parents, lawyers, and people holding folders like shields. Nobody stared for long, but their eyes flicked up and down the way triage does when it decides who gets seen first. Marisol kept moving. Stay close, she said. Don't answer anyone unless I tell you. Haley nodded and kept her hands empty. The USB drive sat in her pocket like a small, sharp object she couldn't show yet. Grant Hollis appeared near the courtroom doors as if he'd been scheduled there too. He wore a button-down and clean shoes, hair neat, expression set to concerned. A man in a suit stood beside him, already flipping through a thick stack of papers. Grant held his own folder with tabs, the kind people buy when they want to look organized. Grant didn't approach Haley. He spoke past her, loud enough to land. I just want Noah to be safe, he said. Marisol's face didn't change. She leaned toward Haley without turning her head. He's performing, she said. Let him. A bailiff opened the door and called names. Marisol stepped in first and guided Haley to the table. Grant sat across from them with his attorney, placing his folder down with care like setting a child on a couch. The judge entered and everyone rose. Haley followed the motion, then sat when told. The hearing moved fast, as if time was a resource only certain people could afford. Grant's attorney stood. Your Honor, this is an emergency custody matter, he said. The mother was placed under psychiatric evaluation after a domestic incident. She then fled the treatment facility. Haley kept her face still. Marisol didn't object with emotion. She asked for specifics. Define fled, Marisol said, and provide documentation that my client was legally discharged or held. Grant's attorney smiled politely. We have staff statements, he said. She left during supervised time. That's not stable behavior. Grant looked at the judge like he was trying not to cry. I begged her to get help, he said. I'm not trying to punish her. I'm trying to protect our son. Marisol stood. My client is a licensed ICU nurse, she said. Her husband initiated a wellness check during a divorce dispute. She has not been convicted of any violence. She has recordings and documentation she will provide through proper channels. The judge raised a hand. This is a temporary hearing, she said. I'm focused on immediate safety, not trial evidence. Grant's attorney took that opening and aimed it at Haley's life. Miss Steinfeld works overnight shifts, he said. She sleeps during the day. She has documented irritability. We have messages where she shuts down communication. He held up a printout. Here, she writes, can't talk. She refuses to engage. This pattern is consistent with mood instability. The judge looked at Haley. Miss Steinfeld, do you want to respond? She asked. Marisol's hand lifted slightly, a signal. Haley spoke anyway, measured. I was at work, Haley said. I was caring for patients. Grant's attorney nodded like she'd proven him right. And when you're stressed, you withdraw, he asked. Marisol cut in. Objection, argumentative. The judge waved it off. It goes to parenting capacity, she said. Grant's attorney continued. She was asked to cooperate with treatment and refused releases. She refused accountability. She left the facility. Your Honor, we are asking for temporary custody to remain with the father until she completes an independent psychological evaluation and shows compliance. Marisol spoke again, crisp. She refused releases because her husband is weaponizing access. She's requesting an independent evaluation precisely to avoid bias. Grant's attorney shrugged. Then she can do it, under supervision. The judge asked a few more questions, then looked down at her notes. The decision arrived with the same tone used for scheduling. Temporary primary custody will remain with Mr. Hollis, the judge said. Ms. Steinfeld will have supervised visitation pending an independent evaluation. You are not to go to the child's school or daycare without written permission from the court. Any contact outside the order will be considered a violation. Haley didn't move. Marisol wrote quickly, already planning the next filing. A woman approached after the hearing with a badge that read, Visitation Supervisor. She handed Haley a packet thick enough to bend. These are the rules, the woman said. Read them carefully. Haley flipped the first page. A line near the top read, Excessive crying may be grounds for termination of visit. Haley looked up. Great, she said. Even my tears have a quota. The supervisor didn't laugh. She pointed to the signature line. Initial each page, she said. They stepped back into the hallway. People flowed around them, talking in low voices, already on to the next case. Grant walked past with his attorney, the folder tucked under his arm like a trophy he didn't have to hold up. As he passed Haley, Grant lowered his voice. Don't make this worse, he said. Haley walks out of the courthouse with the visitation packet tucked under her arm. Marisol talks to a clerk at the window while Haley stands to the side, following the rules before she even learns them. A court worker guides Noah past the benches toward Grant. Noah looks back once, confused, then keeps moving when Grant squeezes his shoulder. Haley doesn't chase. The bailiff's stare is enough. Outside, Marisol points her toward a small office park where an independent evaluator rents 2 rooms over a dentist. Haley drives there without music. She parks, adjusts her scrubs, and walks in promptly. Dr. Asha Patel, the evaluator, shakes Haley's hand and offers water in a paper cup. She speaks fast, like she has another appointment right after this one. I need all records from the facility, Dr. Patel says. Admission notes, progress notes, everything. Haley hands over the documents she has, which is mostly court paper and a discharge review schedule copied by memory. Dr. Patel frowns at the thin stack. They should have sent a packet, she says. Haley answers with the only honest thing. They didn't. Dr. Patel writes a letter, signs it, and slides it toward Haley to read. By afternoon, the facility returns Dr. Patel's fax with a cover page that says some notes are unavailable. Marisol calls it what it is. They're claiming they can't locate part of your therapy documentation, she says. Haley meets her at a copy shop and watches the clerk staple the pages. One line stands out. Dr. Rhodes has added an update stating Haley admitted paranoia about being recorded. Marisol's jaw tightens. He's planting language, she says. Haley pulls the recorder from her bag and sets it on the counter, not letting the clerk touch it. Marisol snaps photos of every page. That night, Haley sits at Marisol's conference table and plays the files through cheap earbuds. Most sound clear enough. Dr. Rhodes mentioning Grant, the word good faith, the hint of a deal. Then one file glitches right where it matters. The audio warps, drops, then returns after the key sentence should have been. Haley rewinds twice. Same gap. Marisol listens once and stops. We can still use what's intact, she says, but we need backups now. Haley plugs the recorder into Marisol's laptop while Marisol opens 3 different drives. She labels the folder with the date, time, and Rhodes's name. Next morning, Grant's attorney files an emergency motion asking for a restraining order on medical information about Grant and Noah. The email arrives from Marisol with the subject line, "Keep your mouth shut," which is not a legal term, but feels accurate. They want to gag you, Marisol says on the phone, so you can't warn anyone. Haley doesn't post anything anyway. She forwards the motion to her personal account and prints it at the copy shop. The clerk asks if she wants it stapled. Yes, Haley says. Make it look official. She slips the packet into her bag and leaves. At noon, HR from the hospital calls. The voice is polite, the way people sound when they've already decided. Until you're medically cleared, you'll be placed on unpaid leave, the representative says. It's standard. Haley asks who requested the clearance. The representative pauses. We received information from your spouse and from the facility, she says. We can't discuss details. After the call, Haley texts her charge nurse to explain. The read receipt pops up, then nothing. In the group chat, her name stops appearing in shifts and swaps. She checks the schedule portal and finds her badge access marked inactive. Haley stops at the grocery store on the way to Marisol's office and watches her card decline twice. The cashier looks away, pretending not to notice. Haley uses a credit card she keeps for emergencies. It declines too. She leaves the cart and walks out with nothing but her keys. In the parking lot, a text comes from a neighbor she used to barbecue with. Heard you're not doing great. If you need help, let me know, the message says. Haley replies, thanks, and waits. No response follows. Her bank app shows the joint account frozen. Grant changed her passwords. Marisol meets her in a downtown office that smells like toner and stale mints. She doesn't offer sympathy, she offers paper. She lays a new filing on the table and taps the header with her finger. He's asking for sole medical decision-making for Noah, Marisol says. If he gets it, he controls doctors, meds, even school forms. Haley sets the USB drive beside the document, a small reminder of the other fight they're building. Marisol flips to the signature page. We respond today, she says. Sign here, and then we start drafting motions. Haley signed where Marisol pointed and slid the pen back across the table. Marisol didn't praise her. She snapped the pages into a folder, then opened a yellow legal pad and wrote 3 columns. Court, medical, employment. Rule 1, Marisol said. No freelance heroics. Haley nodded and pulled out her receipt scraps, USB drive, and the visitation packet. She laid them in a straight line and started sorting by date, like charting an intake history with no nurse to double-check it. They worked through a checklist instead of a conversation. Marisol drafted a request for records, Haley addressed envelopes, and nobody used the word feel. The only emotion allowed was efficiency. That afternoon, Tasha Brooks texted Marisol's office phone. I can drop something. 5 minutes. Tasha arrived in jeans and a hoodie, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She handed Haley a stapled packet and kept her voice low. I pulled what I could before IT locked me out, Tasha said. Email logs, call notes, timestamps. Haley flipped to a highlighted line. Grant Hollis had called HR a full week before the wellness check, then followed up the morning of the hold. The times matched the weird 20-minute gap on the police form like gears clicking. Marisol's eyes sharpened. "That's premeditation," she said, "not a panic." Tasha didn't stay for gratitude. "Be careful," she said. "He's charming. That's his hobby." After Tasha left, Marisol set the packet beside Haley's recorder files and started building an index. She attached the HR timeline, the custody orders, and Dr. Patel's request for missing notes. Then she added a short statement from Haley that stuck to facts. Who said what, when, and what happened after. A nurse from the facility called while Marisol was printing. Her name was Denise Carter, and her voice sounded tired but firm. "I can't stand what they did," Denise said. "I saw you. You weren't acting violent. You were flat, but not dangerous." Marisol asked questions like a metronome. "Did staff pressure her to sign releases?" "Yes," Denise said. "Did they cut her phone after she refused?" "Yes." "Did you hear anyone mention her husband by name?" Denise paused. "More than once," she said. Marisol didn't promise Denise protection, only procedure. "I'll subpoena you if we need to," she said. "Keep your own notes." Next came the part that made Grant's story fragile. Evidence that didn't rely on Haley's credibility. Marisol filed a motion for the facility's complete metadata, who edited which note and when, plus camera logs, including the moment the doorbell footage went offline, and the courtyard schedule that magically allowed Haley to be labeled a runner. She requested the board review recordings too, if they existed. The clerk stamped the filing and handed back a copy like it was a grocery receipt. On the way back from the clerk's window, Marisol stopped at the kiosk and paid for certified copies. Haley held the receipt and wrote the case number on the USB label with Marisol's pen. Grant's attorney called Marisol 10 minutes later. "We're willing to discuss a cooperative plan," he said. "Start with giving us the logs," Marisol replied. He lowered his voice. "You understand your client left a facility. That won't play well." Marisol didn't lower hers. "Neither will altered records." A staff number from the facility flashed on Haley's phone. She answered on speaker. "We need you to return any property that belongs to us," a woman said. "You mean my voice?" Haley asked. "Recording devices are prohibited," the woman said. Marisol leaned in. "It's hers," she said. "Send the request in writing." By evening, Grant's attorney emailed a response that sounded polite and rushed. "We need additional time to comply," it said. "The requested materials are burdensome." Marisol read it once and snorted. Translation: "They didn't expect you to ask for receipts." Haley watched Marisol stack paper until the desk looked like a small wall. "Congratulations," Marisol said. "You just became the system's craft project." Haley slid a paperclip onto the HR timeline. "I've always liked DIY," she said. Marisol's phone rang again. She listened, eyes narrowing, then covered the speaker. "They set a new hearing date," she told Haley. "Dr. Rhodes is being compelled to testify." Haley didn't move, but her hand went to the USB in her pocket, checking it the way she used to check a patient's IV line. Marisol ended the call and pointed at the recorder on the table. "Tonight," she said, "you listen again. Find the sentence where he thinks he's talking to Grant, not to a court." Haley sat beside Marisol at the counsel table, palms on the folder with her USB drive. Grant sat across the aisle with his attorney, tie straight, eyes fixed ahead. When the clerk called Dr. Calvin Rhodes, he walked to the witness box like he belonged there. "State your name for the record," the judge said. "Dr. Calvin Rhodes," he replied, "psychiatrist." Grant's attorney kept his tone warm. "Doctor, what is your duty when a patient may be a risk?" "Patient safety and community safety," Rhodes said. "Ethics require caution." "And Miss Steinfeld?" "Poor insight, escalating agitation," Rhodes said. "That can signal danger." Haley watched the court reporter's hands. Rhodes's phrases landed on paper like facts. "Did you see violence?" Grant's attorney asked. "Not physical," Rhodes said, "but ideation and volatility." Marisol stood, legal pad in hand. "Dr. Rhodes, when a patient refuses a release of information, do you punish them by cutting phone access?" Rhodes blinked. "We set limits if behavior warrants it." "So when Miss Steinfeld refused to sign a release for Grant Hollis and lost her phone minutes later, that was medical?" Marisol asked. "I can't speak to timing," Rhodes said. "Then let's speak to your notes," Marisol said. She held up a printed page. "You wrote 'lack of insight' repeatedly, yet you never documented a direct threat, correct?" "It's documented as risk," Rhodes said. "You also wrote 'an outburst happened in the kitchen and involved cookware,'" Marisol said. "Did you verify that?" "It came from collateral history," Rhodes said. "From whom?" Marisol asked. "Family," Rhodes said. "You mean Grant Hollis," Marisol said. Rhodes's eyes slid toward Grant and back. "From the family system, yes." Marisol flipped to another exhibit. "How often do you put a husband's first name in a clinical note?" "It identifies collateral contacts," Rhodes said. "Your schedule shows Hollis, follow-up," Marisol said, showing the page. "Not patient review. Hollis." Rhodes shifted. "That could refer to my client's husband," Marisol cut in. "Did you speak with Grant Hollis's attorney before the board review?" "I don't recall," Rhodes said. Marisol didn't raise her voice. "That's reassuring, Doctor. It's comforting to know you forget at the most convenient moments." Grant's attorney started to object, then stopped when the judge lifted a hand. Marisol turned. "Miss Steinfeld, Exhibit 7. Haley slid the USB drive to the clerk and kept her fingers together until it left her hand. A speaker was placed on the evidence table. Marisol pressed play. Rhodes' voice filled the room, lower than his testimony. "Grant has done a lot to help you. Now, it's your turn to show some good faith." The recording rolled on, catching Rhodes again. "If you cooperate, it goes faster." Then Grant's voice. "They'll write stable. You'll see Noah." Grant's attorney stood. "Objection! Authentication!" Marisol handed the judge an affidavit and metadata printout. "Texas's one-party consent. She was a participant." The judge nodded. "Overruled." Marisol faced Rhodes. "That's your voice, correct?" "It sounds like me," Rhodes said. "And you referenced Grant as if he were part of your plan," Marisol said. "Now, motive." She placed a ledger and a short agreement in front of him. "A training consult payment to your clinic from an entity linked to Grant Hollis, 2 days before your Hollis follow-up." Rhodes stiffened. "That was a donation." Marisol tapped the date. "Same week you started using the phrase violent ideation, and the facility later claimed certain notes went missing. Is that coincidence?" Rhodes tried to answer, stopped, then said, "I acted ethically." Marisol didn't let him settle. "In your testimony, you said you never observed physical violence," she said. "Yet your note uses the phrase violent ideation. Which is it?" "Risk language," Rhodes said. His voice tightened. "Did you write that after speaking with Grant?" Marisol asked. "I speak with families," Rhodes replied. Marisol lifted another page. "This entry was edited at 11:42 p.m., the night before the hearing, and your first sentence adds, 'Patient admitted paranoia about being recorded.' Did she say that to you?" Rhodes hesitated. "She implied distrust." "Answer the question," the judge said. Rhodes's cheeks reddened. "I documented my clinical impression." "So you changed the record," Marisol said, "when court got scheduled." Rhodes leaned forward. "I resent that characterization." The judge stared until he leaned back and swallowed hard. The judge leaned forward. Dr. Rhodes, you will provide all notes, drafts, and edit logs. The court is referring this matter to the State Medical Board. Grant's head snapped toward Haley, his jaw working like he'd swallowed something sharp. The judge struck the gavel. Recess. Chairs scraped. Marisol was already walking toward the hallway, phone raised, dialing as she passed the bailiff. Haley unlocked the door to the temporary apartment Marisol had found through a friend and stepped in with a paper bag of takeout and a folder of court copies. She didn't turn on the TV. She went straight to the small table and emptied her tote like she was clearing a tray after a code. Out came her old ICU badge, the folded note that said one-party consent, and the thick plastic spoon the unit had treated like a privilege. She lined them up, then slid the badge into a drawer and set the note under a magnet on the fridge. From the folder, she pulled a blank sheet of paper and wrote in block letters, "Visits, sleep, food." She taped it to the fridge with 2 strips of blue painter's tape she'd bought at a gas station on the way back. Under visits, she copied the supervised schedule and the address of the visitation center. Under sleep, she wrote a start time and an end time, not because she needed permission to rest, but because she needed proof she could keep a routine without falling apart. Under food, she wrote 3 simple meals, then added a reminder, keep receipts. She didn't call it self-care. She called it not giving Grant new material. She opened the drawer again, found a roll of labels, and stuck one to the USB drive. Rhodes Audio, Original. On the table sat a printout Marisol had emailed earlier, a photo of the facility's patient rights poster. Haley picked it up, smoothed the page, and pulled a yellow highlighter from her work bag. She dragged the tip under one line as if she were marking a lab value, the right to refuse. She highlighted it twice, then set the highlighter down next to her keys. There was nothing dramatic about it. It was the same motion she used when she checked a medication order for a decimal point. She folded the page and slid it into the folder labeled Court, then stood to wash the single plate she'd used for takeout. The thick spoon lay on the counter, heavier than it needed to be. Haley rinsed it, dried it, and placed it in the utensil drawer. She peeled the label and wrote Trophy in black ink, then stuck it to the handle. She didn't smile. She just closed the drawer and ran the faucet again to wash the cup she hadn't finished. Her hands kept moving, steady, like she could scrub the day off without making it a story. The phone on the table vibrated once, not her number on the screen. She answered on speaker, keeping one hand on the table, the other near the folder. "This is the visitation supervisor. Noah is here. You have 3 minutes." In the background, Noah asked, "Is that Mom?" Haley kept her tone level. "Hi, buddy." Noah spoke fast. "Are you mad at Dad?" Haley didn't answer the trap. "I'm not mad at you," she said. "How was school?" A pause. Then Noah said, "I got a sticker." "Put it on your notebook," Haley said. The supervisor's voice cut in. "Remember, no discussing the case." Haley answered without edge. "Got it." Noah asked, "Are you coming to my field day?" Haley checked the fridge schedule with her eyes. "I can't come to school right now," she said, "but I'll see you on Saturday, okay?" Noah's breath hit the phone. "Promise?" "I'll be there," Haley said. She didn't add anything about court, doctors, or Grant. The supervisor counted down. 10 seconds. Haley kept it simple. "I love you." "Love you," Noah said, and the line went dead. Haley set the phone down and wrote Saturday 10 a.m. on the visits line again, darker this time. She stood, walked to the sink, and rinsed her hands even though they were already clean. When she sat back down, she didn't look at the missed call log. She opened the court folder and slid the HR timeline underneath the recording transcript. Her phone buzzed again with a message from Marisol. "They sent a draft agreement. Read it now. Don't react to it." Haley didn't answer right away. She pulled the chair out, sat, and opened her laptop, the cheap one she'd bought after Grant locked her out of the old account. The email loaded slowly. The attachment was titled, "Proposed Temporary Orders." She clicked it, then waited while pages appeared, one after another. Language about supervised visits, evaluations, access to records. Her finger hovered over the trackpad as she reached the paragraph labeled, medical decision-making, and the cursor stopped on Grant's name. She grabbed the highlighter, set it beside the keyboard, and scrolled down, reading each clause aloud under her breath once. The courthouse hallway was crowded again, but this time, Haley didn't clutch her papers like she might drop them. Marisol walked one step ahead, carrying a binder thick enough to qualify as a weapon in a different kind of trial. The clerk at the window recognized Marisol and slid their file across without small talk. Grant sat on a bench with his attorney, posture straight, face set to patient. The folder on his lap looked slimmer than last time. When he saw Haley, he stood as if he were greeting a colleague, not the person he'd tried to erase. A bailiff opened the courtroom door and called their case. Haley followed Marisol to the table, hands empty, chin level. The judge took the bench and glanced at the stack of filings with a look that suggested she had already read enough of everyone's private life for one career. Marisol stood first. "Your Honor, we're here on updated temporary orders and protective relief," she said. "We also have developments related to the facility and the treating psychiatrist." Grant's attorney rose, careful. "We're willing to cooperate with a phased plan," he said. "Mr. Hollis's only concern remains safety." The judge didn't look impressed. "Safety does not include misusing process to punish a parent," she said. She reviewed the updated recommendations from the independent evaluation, then turned to the orders. "Ms. Steinfeld will have increased parenting time," the judge said. "Supervision will be reduced on a step-down schedule contingent on compliance with the independent evaluator's plan, not the facility's internal notes. Mr. Hollis will not interfere with medical records, employment contacts, or communications beyond what is authorized by court order." Grant's jaw tightened. His attorney started to speak, then stopped when the judge lifted a finger. "I'm issuing a protective order restricting the use of medical claims as leverage," the judge continued. "Any future attempt to weaponize psychiatric allegations without verified evidence will be treated as harassment." Marisol slid a document to the clerk. "The State Medical Board has opened an investigation," she said. "Dr. Calvin Rhodes has been suspended pending review, and the facility has been asked to preserve records and audit its procedures." Haley watched Grant's face change in small increments. He didn't look shocked. He looked cornered. Like he'd expected a penalty, just not a public one. The judge nodded once. "This court will forward relevant materials to the board and require complete production of the facility's edit logs and camera logs," she said. "Mr. Hollis, you will pay sanctions and a portion of Ms. Steinfeld's attorney's fees related to frivolous and bad faith filings." Grant's attorney tried to soften it. "We'd ask for more time on payment," he said. The judge's voice stayed flat. "You asked for more time when I asked for records," she replied. "Denied." After the hearing, the hallway opened around them like a river of cases. Marisol walked toward the clerk's office to finalize signatures. Haley remained by the wall, reading the updated visitation schedule in her hands, tracking dates and addresses like medication times. Grant approached without his attorney, stopping at arm's length, palms out, like he was offering peace. "Look," he said, "we can handle this privately. I'll give you more time with Noah if you stop pushing the medical board thing." Haley didn't raise her voice or step back. "Put it in writing," she said. Grant's smile flickered. "I'm trying to be reasonable," he said. "Send it to Marisol," Haley replied. He leaned closer, as if proximity could turn into authority. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said. Haley shifted her papers to her other hand and kept her posture unchanged. "Email her," she said. Grant's attorney called him from across the hall. Grant hesitated, then walked away with a look that tried to be wounded and failed. Marisol's phone buzzed while she stood at the copy kiosk. She glanced at the screen and angled it toward Haley. "Congratulations," Marisol said. "You just won a round against America's most dangerous enemy, paperwork." Haley answered without smiling. "I still hate printers," she said. They returned to the courtroom when the clerk called them back for final signatures. The judge waited with a stack of orders on the desk, pen ready. Haley stood when instructed and stepped to the table. "Ms. Steinfeld," the judge said, You will sign acknowledging receipt and compliance. Haley took the pen. She didn't look at Grant while she wrote her name. The ink line stayed smooth. When she finished, she set the pen down gently, like placing a tool back on a tray. The clerk slid the stamped custody order across the table to Haley, and Haley reached for it as Marisol leaned in to point at the next page requiring initials. Haley waited at the designated exchange spot 10 minutes early because being on time was one of the few things nobody could twist into a symptom. The building was plain, the parking lot busy with other parents doing the same slow math of schedules and rules. A supervisor checked Haley's ID, checked the court order, then waved her toward the curb. Noah came out holding a small backpack, hair damp like someone had rushed him. He didn't run. He walked fast, eyes locked on Haley, then stopped close enough to bump her hip. "Hi, buddy," Haley said. "Hi," Noah said, and leaned in like he was pretending not to. Haley didn't make it a scene. She took his backpack, checked the zipper, and guided him to the car. "Seatbelt first," she said. Noah climbed in, and Haley threaded the strap through his shoulder the way she used to fix his pajama top when he twisted in his sleep. She tugged once to make sure it clicked. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Noah considered this with seriousness. "Can we get fries?" he said. "Not tonight," Haley said. "Tonight, we eat at home." Noah nodded as if he'd expected that answer. Haley drove with both hands on the wheel, not because she was nervous, but because her body had learned that control looked like calm. Noah talked about a class pet, then about a kid who got in trouble for running in the hallway. Haley listened, asked one question, and let him keep going. At the apartment, Haley parked, walked around to Noah's side, and checked his coat zipper before they crossed the lot. "Cold?" she asked. "I'm fine," Noah said, copying her old wording, and she didn't react. She unlocked the door, stepped in first, then held it open for him. The deadbolt clicked behind them. A small camera above the entryway blinked once, then settled. Haley didn't stare at it. She just set Noah's backpack on the hook that had his name on a label and hung her keys on the nail beside it. Noah kicked off his shoes and headed for the kitchen table like it belonged to him again. "What are we eating?" he asked. "Pasta," Haley said. "Like before?" Noah asked. "Like before," Haley said. She washed her hands, filled a pot, and turned the stove on. The movements were ordinary, which was the point. On the counter sat a folder labeled Court. Haley slid it into a cabinet and closed the door. A second folder labeled School stayed on the counter, next to a printed emergency contact sheet. The first name on it was Marisol Vega, not Grant Hollis. Haley taped it to the cabinet near the phone charger without making a speech about it. Noah sat and pulled a worksheet from his backpack. "We had to circle the nouns," he said. "Did you circle the nouns?" Haley asked. "Mostly," Noah said, then grinned. "I circled my name, too." Haley stirred the pot. "That's a noun," she said. "Technically." Noah watched her for a moment, then asked the question like he'd been saving it. "Are you still at the hotel with locked doors?" he said. Haley didn't pause with the spoon. "No," she said. "Now our home just locks the door, like normal grown-ups." Noah absorbed that, then nodded as if it fixed a missing piece. "Okay," he said. Haley set 2 plates out. Noah reached for forks, then hesitated. "Do I have to be careful?" he asked. "With the hot pot, yes," Haley said. "With me? No." Noah slid his chair closer to the table. Haley drained the pasta and added sauce, then carried the pot to the center with both hands. She served Noah first because she always did. Noah took a bite and immediately started talking about recess again, switching topics the way kids do when they feel safe enough to waste words. Haley kept the conversation on school, food, and what movie they might watch later if homework got done. She didn't mention court. She didn't mention doctors. She let dinner be dinner. Her phone buzzed once on the counter. Haley didn't reach for it until Noah was mid-sentence about the class pet's name. She glanced at the screen. Grant's message sat there like an uninvited guest. "We should talk. I can be flexible if you stop making problems." Haley didn't answer. She opened the message, took a screenshot, and forwarded it to Marisol with 2 words. "Documenting this." Then she set the phone face down on the counter and went back to the table. Noah asked, mouthful, "Who texted?" "Work stuff," Haley said. Noah accepted that without interest and asked for more sauce. Haley stood, reached for the jar, and wiped a small spill with a paper towel. After dinner, she carried plates to the sink while Noah stacked napkins the way he liked. Crooked, but earnest. Haley rinsed dishes, dried her hands, and set the last cup in the rack. When Noah climbed onto his chair again, Haley walked to the entryway and pressed the button on the doorbell chime. The small speaker went silent. She left the camera running, checked the deadbolt with a quick touch, and turned back toward the table as Noah pulled his worksheet closer and waited for her to sit.